What's a sign someone is quietly planning to quit their job? Story 1. I recall coworkers would suddenly have dentist-doctor appointments, like every week they were at interviews. Answer: at my first salaried job, the owner of the company hired an outbound sales associate. About 4 months into her role, she called in and told the owner she had an emergency dentist appointment because she chipped her tooth on a popcorn kernel the night before. When she came into work later that day, she showed us the chipped tooth. She had 2 more dentist appointments that month, and after the final appointment, she submitted her 2 weeks' notice. Turns out, her dentist appointments were job interviews with another company that extended her an offer. Her chipped tooth was actually something that happened to her years before. She simply removed the cap covering after the first appointment to lend credence to the situation. Story 2. Usually, if a high performer or likable manager quits, that sets off a chain reaction of quitters. Seen it a few times. Answer: my company fired 3 people at the beginning of the year, 1 very high performer and 2 devs whom we actually really needed a month later. We're all searching for new jobs or making plans to leave while keeping the higher-ups happy. They just fired another guy that they literally hired 3 weeks ago and haven't told everyone yet. They set this guy up to fail due to bad management. One person already found a new job and left about 2 weeks ago. I have 3 interviews lined up this week and next. I'm hoping one of them pans out. My direct manager stopped fighting and explaining themselves to the higher-ups. They just agree and do the shoot. The higher-ups ask for demand. They plan on growing their skills while they are here and move into a different role entirely. Others have been putting out feelers. Story 3. My previous boss told me some things when me and him were driving home from a work outing, such as how he felt he got passed over for a promotion, how resentful he was about some things, etc., etc. At first, I was like, why is he telling me these things? A month or so later, he announces he had accepted an offer for another job. Story 4. When I decided to quit my job, my behavior changed instantly. I just didn't care anymore. I decided that I did not want to hear my colleagues complain anymore. I didn't want to stress myself anymore. I was thus very chill and I agreed with everyone. I was not fighting anymore. It's a nice feeling, NGL. You then notice that nobody pays attention, and this confirms that it's time for you to leave. No regret at all. Answer: I feel ya. I'm preparing to leave my job, though probably not for another few months or so, while I prepare my general knowledge base for the career change. But now I find myself no longer wanting to tolerate the annoying or over-eager coworker or the incompetent manager, and I find myself pitying just how taken advantage of some of my coworkers are in their passion for this profession. I literally just want to go through the day with as little fanfare as possible, get paid, and go home. Story 5. They appear happier than ever. They take lots of phone calls outside when they haven't done this before, either health scare or new job. Story 6. Their stress levels drop almost overnight. Fair warning. This can also indicate an intention to commit tragic end. Both come with a sudden, almost euphoric relief that a decision has been made, and the struggle is almost over. Answer: I was probably right before the breaking point of stress levels when I went into work and told them I couldn't do it anymore. My hands were shaking so bad from nerves on the drive to work that I felt like I could barely drive straight. Quitting helped, but I didn't have another job lined up, and I had told my wife I would have one before I quit. We ended up going to marriage counseling. Luckily, I landed a job I really like, starting at the pay I had from the job I quit. The stress levels are almost non-existent now. It's been a huge change in my mental state to not stress about work as much as I used to. Story 7. Using up most, if not all, sick time and/or vacation time, stops inquiring about tasks or projects, work rate slows down to bare minimum, turns down overtime they normally would take. More relaxed or honest with coworkers or management. Answer. I would add, for the first one, as a manager, usually it's taking single sick days or single vacation days, especially in the middle of the week. Most people who are sick tend to not miraculously recover in one day. Similarly, it's unusual to take vacation days that aren't the long weekend kind, and most companies book interviews on days other than Monday, Friday. But yeah, I think the other red flag I've noticed is when someone on a growth path suddenly stops taking extracurricular interests. It may not mean they're looking or interviewing, but it definitely is a sign something is up. They're either unhappy with work, going through some sort of mental health burnout, etc. Unfortunately, I've found as a manager, no matter how I'd try to breach that subject, employees tend to just give you the "no, everything is fine" vague answer. Story 8. In a retail store setting, they purchase top-end merchandise using an employee discount. This is how I get a 2-month notice that they are planning to leave. Answer. I've had my current job for a little over a year now, and the first thing I was planning on doing as soon as I got an offer for a more stable job was to buy the most expensive thing we sold with my discount. We have a floor sample to demo to customers and loved using it ourselves. It's been so long that not only did I lose interest in the thing as I have learned about better alternatives, we stopped selling it outright. Story 9. They stop caring about deadlines or showing up early. They check out in meetings and avoid extra work. Their mood changes, but they don't say why. Answer. I did this at my last job. I challenged my new manager on a policy she made up. Took it all the way to HR, who said, "No, that's a made-up policy. You don't have to do that." The director called me, saying she made the policy, and it absolutely needed to be followed. Regardless of that, HR said. So I started coming in at 8 a.m. I'd be at work earlier, but I'd be in my car or walling outside the building. I wouldn't sit down or start my laptop till 8 a.m. And even if I was in a phone call, I'd tell the person I'll call them back the next time I needed to leave and clock out at 5 p.m. A month later, I handed in my resignation. I didn't even tell them I got a new job. I just quit, and when they asked why, I cited that situation and said I don't work for bullies. Story 10. I knew my colleague was quitting a whole month before she told anyone because I noticed. 1. She used to look stressed out when it's the end of the day, almost like she's thinking, WTF, how is it 6 p.m. already? I still have so much to do. But then suddenly she would start leaving at 6 p.m. sharp in a really relaxed and nonchalant manner, almost as if she's thinking, "Welp, it's time to go home. All this shoot won't be my problem anymore soon enough." 2. But the biggest giveaway is when we'd have a big team meeting. You know, when your boss is spouting all these big grand ideas he has in his head, and the team shoot each other a look like, "Oh fudge, looks like we'll have more work on our plate." I noticed she didn't participate in those glances anymore. She'd just zone out because she knew she wouldn't be involved anymore. Answer 1. She used to look stressed out when it's the end of the day, almost like she's thinking, WTF, how is it 6 p.m. already? I still have so much to do. But then suddenly she would start leaving at 6 p.m. sharp in a really relaxed and nonchalant manner, almost as if she's thinking, "Welp, it's time to go home. All this shoot won't be my problem anymore soon enough. Hell, I always do that even if I don't plan to quit. I get paid hourly, and my shift ends at 5 p.m. I don't care how much work I have left to do. I am logging off at 5 p.m. sharp without exception. Work never bleeds into my free Time. It's the only reason I don't quit, TBH. Story 11. The most consistent tell is the one management already knows. They ask for a raise that is denied or less than requested. Then they will reconfirm benefits to compare to their new offer. They will begin filing expenses ahead of normal routines. And last, they spend more time at the printer or copier. Story 12. A big clue is when someone who was always part of the team suddenly pulls back. Maybe they skip the group chats, don't join for lunch, and just seem less interested in everything at work. They might start clocking out right on time, calling in sick more often, or turning down new projects. You can kind of sense their attention drifting, like they're getting ready for something new, but haven't said it out loud yet. Story 13. I worked as a claims agent for a home warranty company during my college years. The last 2 weeks there, I approved claims left and right automatically instead of looking into them like we were supposed to. I thought to myself, screw it. Might as well give myself less hassle and make random people's lives a bit easier. Story 14. They have that resigning glow, similar to women's pregnancy glow. In resignation case, the guys glow too. Story 15. They get the I don't give a fudge attitude in all their interactions. They arrive bang on 9 and are gov by 5. Some of them will start to close out those things that have been piling on their desk out of courtesy to their teams. Story 16. Buying things that require loans since you may not have job. Going to doctor and dentist while still insured, removing personal items from work inconspicuously, ignoring stupid requests and not taking crap from people like you normally would. I quit my job after 20 years recently. Story 17. I'm quietly planning on quitting my job. There are no signs. I'll quit when I quit. I probably won't even give any notice. I just won't ever come to work again. Hopefully, sometime in the next month. Story 18. First sign is they start randomly calling in sick more often, usually for a single day, or start taking random single holiday days for no obvious reason. Normally means they're actually attending interviews. Story 19. I was certain I was getting laid off in 2019, pre-COVID, and started quietly looking for a new job. Every day I started bringing home some personal items from my desk. Nothing much, just a few things I would be sad to no longer have. I had a bunch of follow-up doctor appointments that I needed to schedule that were actually interviews. I stopped voluntarily participating in meetings. If I wasn't called on, I kept my mouth shut. I didn't make suggestions or offer encouragement. Just checked right out. I stopped engaging with coworkers for anything non-work related. I stopped all overtime. Suddenly was super busy after work. I found that my mood and mental health immediately improved. Because what's the worst they could do? Fire me? Ha! Then the COO called me and was all, I would like to move you to another department. Which I agreed to. Work is just a means to provide me with funds to live. Story 20. When they show up to work wearing interview clothes they don't normally wear any other day. I've done that a few times. One of the most memorable. Good morning. That's a nice outfit. Do we need to be worried? I knew what the person meant and I answered this way. Good morning to you. Thank you and yeah, you probably do. Then the person literally ran into the CEO's office. I was out the door in less than a month to a better and better paying job. Answer. When I quit one of my first jobs at a small business, one of the owners asked what they could do to keep me change my mind. I told him, if I thought you really wanted to keep me, you'd have done it by now. Something I heard third hand from someone who left a job was essentially, you didn't have it in the budget for 6 months, but now that I'm 1 foot out the door, you have all these resources. I'll pass because all you're doing is resetting my ceiling. the new place is setting my floor. That stuck with me at a job I quit 4 years ago. I was telling my director why I was leaving. I had made my argument for a raise, had everything short of a PowerPoint. When he asked if there was anything they could do, I used a combination of the two. I did the math, and I was asking for $3,200 a year from a billion-dollar multinational company. I said, to put that in perspective, when they have ELT fly to a site or they do these top performers off-site meetings, they spend magnitudes more than my annual salary, and I'm asking for a fraction of it. I'll pass. I wasn't bitter or pissed off. I knew how the game was played. But every company that preaches loyalty and doesn't practice it, nah. Fam, I'm good. Story 21. Some signs can be taking a bunch of personal days, particularly around weekends, to extend them and openly admitting to not doing much. Had someone I worked with doing this, was burning vacation and sick time before putting in 2 weeks, just took a ton of trips and relaxed. Story 22. I've rarely seen a quiet quit. I have seen a resentment build over a week, day, or entire career that escalates into a walkout one day. Story 23. I just went up for promotion with some competition from a couple co-workers, except I've been doing everything basically that the promotion asks for the last 6 mo. And if I don't get it, I won't be waiting for another position to open up. I'll be finding a new place of employment without telling a single person. I haven't even told anyone IRL I applied for it or had the interview, which I think went fantastic. Okay, rant over. Story 24. People who used to take the initiative to take on extra tasks and work overtime suddenly became punctual for work and leave on time, and used no time and no idea as excuses for work beyond their responsibilities. They even did their core work perfunctorily and no longer pursued quality and efficiency. Story 25. They start buying barrels of ammonium nitrate and have booked a random day off midweek for a passion project they're working on. Story 26. If someone is trying to quit their job quietly, it means that they don't have faith in their employer to want the best for them. That shoot is on you, dog. Story 27. As someone who literally did exactly this a week ago, I didn't take phone calls or anything like some had suggested. Quite literally, just stopped caring about the job. Didn't care if I got fired for not doing something or doing it wrong because I had a guaranteed plan B. That job was the most stressful job I ever held until I landed my new job. Story 28. I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary of quietly quitting my job. It was the very best feeling in the world, leaving behind a toxic work environment ruled over by inept and narcissistic senior managers. Now, I'm happier and more free than I've felt in a long time. Before leaving, I started taking home things from my office. I also started passing up opportunities to excel, giving others a chance to work harder for no additional recognition or compensation. I gave only a few days' notice, as the managers had a very long track record of screwing with every single person, even those retiring, who gave plenty of notice of leaving. Story 29. When things get frustrating during the job and they just laugh into the void, briefly and abruptly before continuing on with the madness. Story 30. I cleared my files on my computer 3 months before. They kept a 3-month backup and slowly took my belonging out. Fan one day, radio another until I had the basics there, and then walked with the contents of my drawers. No one knew it was coming. I even waited until a major project was due for a meeting and did nothing. Boss and company were crooks, and they lost the contract. Story 31. I didn't give a shoot after I was passed for what I thought was a nailed-on promotion. I very quietly applied for another job, and once I got it, the doors to all my pent-up years of frustration were opened, and I aired a few home truths. No personal attacks, just work-related. It was liberating, freeing, and I knew I could pretty much say what I wanted without fear, because who is going to snitch on somebody leaving very soon? Story 32. They no longer get upset about things they cannot change. They only work their contracted hours. They get quieter. Their workspace seems tidier. Story 33. Them not giving as many fudge about their work as they once did, using all their vacation or PTO unexpectedly. Story 34. When they stop complaining. If someone is no longer bringing up issues and trying to fix them, they don't care anymore because they're on their way out. Same goes for relationships. Story 35. I'm currently in the middle of looking for a new job and seeing if I'm doing any of these, LOL. Def, a lot less caring. Lots of sure, because in my head I won't be dealing with the fallout later. Story 36. So many of the signs listed, being happy and relaxed, showing fewer signs of stress, not feeling obligated to do extra unpaid work, using their paid time off, taking care of themselves with doctor's visits, using their employee discount. It's too bad those can't be the signs of an average employee who is happy with their job. Story 37. Stop participating, stop chatting, clearing the desk off for no obvious reason. Any conversation they have, they don't engage, add nothing besides yeahs and sures. Story 38. I just did enough at work to get by and not raise any suspicions. With the time I saved, I updated my resume and job searched. Story 39. I've been running kitchens for a long time. I remember a while back when I was just a cook that we had one guy who was really good. Great work ethic, never called out, definitely none of the best hourly employees I've ever worked with. He had a knife roll like all of us, but he never took it home. He always cleaned his knives, put them in his roll, and put it in the chef's office. One night, he was in a shoot mood because he was denied a raise, and we're talking like less than $1 per hour after not getting one for several years. He'd found out a new cook that was hired was making more than he was and just wanted to be making the same. Anyway, it was the first time I saw him take his knives home with him, and also the last. So the sign for me is if someone is pissed and takes all of their personal belongings with them, they're probably going to quit. Story 40. I started taking home personal items one by one, a cup here, a picture there. When it was time to exit, there was no box to pack. Story 41. If you work in a company that does annual bonuses, you can usually count on a wave of quits in the week or two after bonuses come out. At my company, we call it turnover season. There's often a similar wave of quits, though delayed, after mid-year reviews, when it becomes clear what kind of bonus you might be able to expect at end of year. A month or two after mid-years, there's often a bunch of people leaving after they figure out it's not worth waiting the year out. Story 42. Being underpaid, toxic workplace, undervalued, overworked, new workload without new pay. Anyone in those conditions would likely be silently quitting. Story 43. Left a sizable company due to a toxic manager and lack of competitive pay. I got a new manager and they were the straw that broke my back, haha. I absolutely loathed being around them. I was so wound up and generally annoyed around her, couldn't stand her micromanagement, and finally got a great opportunity. I waited patiently for months for said opportunity to finally reach out. I spent months just generally upset. It was seeping into my personal life and relationship. I was thinking about work on the weekends. I was about to crack. As soon as the new company gave me an offer, my eyes watered. All that pent-up anger and aggression just vanished. I was relieved. I went back to the office the next day like I won the Powerball. I think she even knew BC. She joked with me that I was leaving her, but I knew that I actually was. By Friday, I told her BC I thought she can do whatever she wants to me, but my biggest commitment is to my clients. I wanted them to be in a good place and offered to work for an additional 3.5 weeks. They could have let me go right then and there, but they let me finish out strong. I worked my hardest those last few weeks there. I received lots of kudos from my clients, university fellows, scientists, engineers, and that made every day that much better. In a better place and growing more now, but am always thankful for my previous opportunity. Story 44. Phrases like, "We'll see how things go," or "I'm not sure I'll be here in a few months," are quite revealing. Story 45. For me, I became instantly happy and no longer stressed. I didn't give any fudge about the people or work that needed to be done. Story 46. I've had 2 different supervisors whose attitudes seemed to abruptly change from stressed, following the company line, talking about goals and where we can go next, to don't worry about it, and sharing their own cynical opinions about higher-up decisions. Both soon announced they were moving on. Story 47. After years of requesting they hire someone to learn the critical systems I support, with no result, I quietly submitted my retirement notification, and suddenly I got their attention. My last day was July 1st, and I am off on my next adventure. Story 48. I've seen changes in personality. The things they were outspoken about seem no bother anymore. They do their job and go home. They're less involved, but still working. Then they're gone. Story 49. In America, they suddenly seem happy, but their next job will be just as horrible. But that month not hating your life is awesome. Story 50. I noticed that people change how they use LinkedIn before changing jobs. They stop sharing general news about the company, so great to see Big Corp achieve Best Employer of the Year, and instead post about personal accomplishments, so proud to work on this new product. This is to build a personal resume or portfolio for anyone who checks out their LinkedIn profile. If they don't set their privacy settings correctly, you can see if they are befriending new people that they interviewed with, or if they like a post by another company. These are giveaways if you are watching closely. The biggest clue is simply that someone puts a lot of effort into updating their LinkedIn profile. It's usually the first thing people do when they are looking for something new. Story 51. When I was planning to quit, I stopped doing anything that wasn't mandatory. I also took more sick days than I had my entire time at the company, with the span of a couple months. Story 52. Today is my last day at my current job. I've been leaving early a lot and flat out.